So yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Chris Bowden from Victoria University in Wellington. It's awesome to have you here to present your wonderful work on stress management, particularly aimed at our men and our dads. So relevant for our fathers who have children with cancers. We understand it's different stress levels, different factors involved, and different influences, whatever they may be, will be different for every family. So it's awesome to have you on board and to give us some tools and talk about how we can keep well mentally, physically, being a man. So yeah, I'll hand it over to you.
Kia ora. Yeah, this is a topic that I'm very passionate about, I guess, in terms of men's mental health, and stress plays a really big role in affecting our mental health and well-being. So I think what we're going to talk about tonight is something that men of all walks of life experience, probably more so some of the dads that are out there that are supporting whānau members with cancer. They have some different stresses to the general guys that are out there dealing with stuff, but hopefully what I'm going to share with you tonight is going to maybe reassure you that what you're doing is helping and you're on the right track, and maybe you'll learn a few new things to add to your toolkit as well. I guess the stress management side of things, you know, these are tools and strategies that we know work. So they should work for anybody really, and hopefully I'm hoping that the guys that are out there tonight who are watching this later on can pick and choose a few things to add to their toolkit. So, you know, maybe it won't all apply, but some of it will apply. Maybe it's some strategies that you can use and share with your whānau as well. So here's a bit of a roadmap for where we're going. I'm going to talk a little bit about stress to begin with, because there's different kinds of stress. Not all stress is bad. And then we'll have a bit of a chat about what causes stress, because there's lots of different things that create stress. How do we know when we're stressed out? Like, what does that look like? When do we know we might need to step back and reassess things and change the way that we're living our life? I'm going to talk a bit about coping styles and strategies. Like, we all cope with stress differently, and there's some ways of coping that are more healthy than others. So that might be a bit of a wake-up call for some of the guys out there. And then I'll share some strategies, some tips and tricks, I think, for how do we manage stress, how do we deal with it, how can we make it a bit more controllable. I'm going to talk a little bit about anxiety as well, because there's a close connection between stress and anxiety, and stress and depression. And people can, a lot of the strategies that we use to manage stress can be used for anxiety too, but there's some extra ones that we can use for anxiety. This is the stuff on self-care, I think guys struggle with a little bit, to tell you the truth. I mean, it sounds like a bit of a girly word, you know. You kind of envision glasses of Pinot Gris and nice food, and, you know, a manicure or a pedicure, or going and getting your hair done. You know, that's all kind of self-care. What does self-care look like for guys? You know, how do we look after ourselves and keep ourselves fit or match fit? You know, how do we keep ourselves sustained in our work and in our lives? And a little bit of problem solving. I want to talk about that too, because that's really important. Like, when we're really stressed, it can be really hard for people to figure out what the problem is and then take a different approach to solving it. And then if anybody wants to hop in, we can have a bit of a chat about what works for you guys. What have you found that's helpful? If not, I'll share some of my strategies, and we got time for some Q&A in the end as well. So that's kind of where we're heading, and hopefully this makes sense as we go. So if we start off with, what is stress? Well, to me, it's a psychological perception. It's a feeling of being under pressure, and that feeling of being under pressure creates a biochemical reaction in the body and in the mind, I guess. You know, we have physiological and behavioral reactions to stress. sometimes we don't even know we're stressed, you know, like we can carry it in our body and not be kind of consciously aware of it. But generally speaking, it's that feeling of being really stretched or burdened or heavy, or that there's just too much burden on us. The challenge is too big for the time and the resources that we've got. And so stress is both a kind of physiological and a psychological response, but it's also something that exists in our environment, like it's outside of us as well. And these things that are outside of us are what we call stressors. So they are the things that contribute to stress. And, you know, they can be all sorts of things. It could be workload, it could be family life, it can be sickness, illness. There's all sorts of things that can make us feel like we're really being pushed to the limit. And so I'm going to talk a bit about the different kinds of stress and what that feels like. So stress is normal. Everybody feels stress. Like, you know, even when you're really healthy and well, you can still feel a bit of stress. Distress is a little bit different. Distress, when we say, oh, you know, I'm stressed, you know, that might mean that we're being pushed, but distress is going to the next level. That's when we're starting to break down, when we're starting to struggle, when we're starting to see some of the harmful effects of stress. Then there's what we call eustress, which is the kind of stress that pushes us. It's a bit of a challenge, but we kind of like that, you know, we like living on the edge a little bit. And, you know, it's kind of that feeling that you get when, you know, you've got a deadline to meet by 5 o'clock and you're still going at 4:30 and you're really stressed about it, but then you make that deadline and you're like, oh, phew, and it feels really good. You know, it's kind of motivated you, but it hasn't really caused any harm. And that eustress is actually quite good. You know, it's to have a little bit of that in our life is actually quite good. It pushes us and it motivates us. And then you've got hyperstress, which is when there's way too much stress in our life. Like you might have stress at work, you might have stress at home, you might have stress in your relationships, you might have financial stress. It's everywhere and it kind of surrounds us and overwhelms us. And then you've got people, believe it or not, who have hypostress, which is no stress. Now, my little brother is like this. He is so laid back. Nothing seems to stress him out. He's like a couch potato. He's just takes everything really slowly. He's kind of like a grizzly bear who's just woken up. And he's just like, everything's chill, man. I'm just cruising. Nothing's a worry. And I don't know if that's a good thing. Like we know that sometimes not having enough stress in our life can cause problems, but I would love to live a life of hypo-stress. I think that should be all of our goals. And then you got something called a crisis. So how do we know we're in a crisis? Well, crises are usually when we can't cope with our stress anymore, when it becomes overwhelming, when we start feeling the effects of that stress, and it can be really harmful to us and to the people around us. And stress can be short term and it can be long term. Like sometimes we can handle stressful situations when we know it's not going to last very long. Like if this is a tough week, we know we can get through it because next week will be different. It's when you've got chronic ongoing stress in your life that we start to see the physical and psychological effects really start to hurt people. So chronic stress is actually the biggest killer in New Zealand. It's linked to heart disease, diabetes, you know, all sorts of things. And so stress is actually really, really important. You know, we should be on the lookout for it and we should be doing something about it rather than thinking it's normal and everybody just lives a stressful life and this is okay, this is the way life is. I don't accept that. I don't think that is a healthy way to live. And we really need to be challenging that idea. And I think during COVID and lockdown, it's been really interesting to see people change their lifestyle or leave work a little bit early and, you know, engage in things that might be preventing some of the stress in their life. And it would be great if we kept some of that stuff going, you know, when we return back to normal. So there's different kinds of stress. We need to be looking out for hyper stress and distress, and really looking out for when we hit the crisis. So here's a nice little kind of graph that you can see, a little table where you can see here, you know, in the green zone, when we're in the green zone, our stress is fairly minimal and our performance is pretty good, right? And then in the middle, when you've got that little bit of stress to push you, kind of optimizes your performance and gets you to kind of, you know, push yourself and be really focused and energized in your work. And that's not bad. But if you start going beyond that into distress, then we start to see fatigue, we start to see exhaustion, we start to see ill health, and then we get breakdown and burnout as a result of that, because people can't maintain that for a long period of time. You can't stay in that red zone for very long without getting back out and having a break. And some people's lives see them in that red zone all the time. And, you know, what I'm going to kind of share with you now is some ideas about how we can get out of that red zone and get back into that middle space, or even have a bit of a holiday and do some things that might calm us and get us back in that green zone as well. So we'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was the causes of stress, because there's lots of things that can cause stress, right? Like there are things that are beyond our control. There are things that happen to us in our family that we don't really have much control over. And there's things that can be really unpredictable that can come out of left field, right? Like, you know, you might have an accident on the way to work, or, you know, an unexpected bill comes in and you think, holy hell, how am I going to pay for this? And so the unpredictability of these events can be really, really stressful. That's not to say that things that are predictable can be stressful. Like, you know, there's going to be a bill coming in at the end of the month, and that can be really stressful as well. And then there's the thing about the demands on our time and energy. You know, if we've got lots of people pulling at us saying, I need you over here, or, you know, I need help, I need help, I need help. We can feel like we're really being stretched in different directions. And the other thing is, people love to pass off other tasks onto us. And if you're like me and you're not very good at saying no to people, you can find that your to-do list gets really long really quickly. And, you know, people don't want to say no. So one of the lessons I'm going to teach you later is how to say no to people in a way that's respectful, but that protects your well-being. So too many tasks, not enough time, not enough money, not enough energy, not enough strategies. You know, all of these things can add stress. You've got things like in your relationships, you've got your well-being, you've got the death of a loved one, you've got a tough job, you've got kids who are demanding and challenging. All of this stuff piles on and can be quite, you know, challenging to work out what actually is causing me stress. Because it could be lots of things and they might all be connected together in a mess. But figuring out what is the main thing that's causing me stress is actually quite important. And we'll get to that when we talk about problem solving. But figuring out what is the thing that's actually causing me the most stress is key to learning how to manage it. So, you know, I want you to kind of think about some of the stresses that are in your own life. And some of these might be right in front of you, like they might be in your immediate family life. You know, these are things that you're confronted with every single day, right? These are things that impact you directly. And then there are other things that are a little way away. And these things are what we call distal risk factors or stressors. And this might be things like, you know, at work, they start cutting people's work hours because they can't afford them. Or they start putting you onto rotating shifts because they need more shift workers. Or they go, you know what, guys, we can't afford all this parental leave and we're going to cut the limit of parental leave and sick leave. Or we need you to use up all your annual leave because we can't carry this over to the next balance. So there's things that are way out there that you don't have a lot of control over that also cause you stress? You know, what if the bank says, well, we're not going to top up your credit card, or we're not going to extend your mortgage? You know, all of these things can cause a lot of stress, and they're way beyond our horizon and beyond our ability to do much about them. But then there are the things that are in our immediate life, and those things we have a bit more control over. Those things we can do something about. And so that's what I kind of want to focus on, is what can we control? Because the stuff that we can't control, that can drive us crazy. And, you know, at a certain point, you just have to put it to the side and say, look, there's not much I can do about that. What can I control? I can control myself. I can control how I think about this. I can control how I look after my well-being, but I can't control this other stuff that's, you know, that's beyond me. Guys like to be in control, I'm telling you that. All right, consequences. So what does this stress look like? How would you know that you're stressed out? Well, sometimes people say to me they can see the steam coming out of my head, and because I'm bald and I got a shiny head, the steam comes off it's pretty easy to see it. It's not trapped in any hair there. And it usually, I start going red and the veins start sort of popping in my neck, and they're like, he's gonna blow. And so physiologically, sometimes I'm not aware of it, but other people are aware of it. I can feel my heart's going a bit quicker. I'm easily pissed off. You know, I've got a short fuse. Sometimes, you know, when I was a smoker for a long time, I would be chain smoking pretty much during the day, or I'd be drinking way too much coffee. I'd be like, I've got to push through things, and I'd maybe neglect my sleep. There are harmful behaviors that we engage in when we're stressed. And then there's things like, oh, I'm so stressed, I can't go to the doctor. You know, I want to go to my boss for help and advice to let them know that I'm stressed, but I also don't want to let them know that I'm not coping. You know, or I should really tell my partner that I'm really stressed at the moment, but I don't want to worry her. So as guys, we do some really stupid things. You know, we try and minimize the stress, and we try and hide it, and we try and protect other people from it. But in the end of the day, it's not doing us any good. And, you know, it's going to come out in some really quite harmful ways. Apart from the kind of physical impact on us, you know, it has quite a few other impacts. You know, it can add to worry. It can make us anxious. We can have trouble concentrating because we're thinking about all the things that we have to deal with. You can have mood swings, you know, like be really down and really not wanting to talk to people and withdraw. You can be really irritable. You can have trouble kind of relaxing at night, like you climb into bed and just things are ticking over, and you can't get to sleep, and, you know, you get up and you pace around and you do all of this stuff. It can affect our mood. Some people eat a lot, you know, and some people stop eating because they're stressed. Some people feel it in their bodies, and they get sore and they get sick. They get colds, they get aches and pains, you know, they end up with a stiff neck and sore shoulders or a bad back. A lot of this is signs that, you know, we're dealing with stress. We can have gastro problems, because guess what? When you're really stressed, your stomach produces lots of stomach acid. And as a result of that, you can end up with ulcers. You can end up being sick. If your blood pressure is really high, you might end up being really dizzy and, you know, almost blacking out. And you might be thinking, geez, that was a hard session at the gym. Maybe that's the reason I'm feeling a bit this way, but actually it might be your blood pressure. And, you know, it affects us sexually as well. Sometimes we lose our libido, we lose our sexual energy and our sexual drive, and we're just like, you know what, I'm so bloody exhausted, I don't even want to think about sex. And, you know, all of this can be red flags that we need to kind of stop and pause and think, you know, why am I feeling this way? You know, what's going on in my life that's making me feel and experience these things. So what do we do about it? What happens? Well, there's a few different things that happen. And whether or not we experience the harmful effects of stress depends on a couple of things. First thing it depends on is the demands of the situation. Now, if somebody comes to me and says, Chris, we've got this really big job to do, we need you to do this, and they're going to add it to my workload, that might be quite stressful. But if I know I've got a month to do it, or that I've got a team that's going to be helping me, then the demands of the situation are not really that threatening. You know, I've got some time to kind of deal with this situation. So the demands of the situation, if someone comes to you and says, I need you to do this right now, then that's a different situation. The second thing that affects our stress is our appraisal or perception of it. Like, you know, my brother, who just kind of floats through life and doesn't feel like anything's a stress, he's really relaxed, he's really chilled out. And that's because when he thinks about things that are stressful, he's like, you know what, it's really not that big a deal. Or, yep, I've had that happen before, I know how to deal with it, right? So his appraisal of the situation makes a difference. And the third thing that makes a difference is whether or not you can access support and help. So if you are really stressed, but you know you've got a good supportive family, or you know you've got mates at work that can help, or you know you've got buddies and friends who you can talk to about this and have a bit of a moan to over a beer, that'll make a difference as well. So it's the demands of the situation, the way we think about it, and then whether or not we've got some support. So I want you to show you this little diagram here, because this is quite interesting. That appraisal, that way that we think about stress, has a really big impact on whether or not we actually experience the stress. So here you've got a situation or an event that could possibly be stressful, right? We don't know if it's going to be stressful or not, but the person's going to think about it. And so here we have the primary appraisal. So this is where the person, so something happens and the person goes, is this a threat or not? Right? You know, is this something I have to deal with? Or is this something that someone else has to deal with? Is this an immediate demand on my time? Do I have to address this right now? And if I go, no, this is not something I have to deal with, guess what? I feel no stress, because it's not my problem. You know, I get these emails all the time, all day, people sending me emails, you know, we have this problem, blah, blah, blah. And I just sit there and go, is this my problem? No, delete the email. No stress. On the other side of it, if it is something I have to deal with, and I'm like, oh, okay, I have to deal with this. This is my problem. And it is a bit of a threat to me. So I can't just kind of pretend it doesn't exist. Then the second appraisal is, can I cope with this? Like, have I got through this before? And I'm thinking about you guys out there with kids and family members who might be sick and have cancer. Have I dealt with this before? Have I gone through this before? Have I got some strategies? Do I know what I'm doing? And if you think that you can cope, if you know you've got support and you've got some skills and you know what to do, then you're probably going to perceive this as a positive stress. Like, you know, this is something I can handle. It's okay, right? If I can cope with this, I'm okay. If you go, you know what, I can't cope with this. I don't have the energy. I don't have the resources. I don't have any skills. I've never had to deal with this situation before, then there's a pretty good chance that you're going to experience negative stress or distress, right? You're going to have the bad stress. So that's why I'm saying to you, it's really important that when you think about your situation, that you think hard about things you can do to get through this. What strategies have you got? Because if you can think of some strategies you can use, then you're far more likely to go down that route of positive stress. If you sit there and go, it's hopeless, I don't know what to do, I've never dealt with this before, I've got no help, there's no one I can ask for any advice, then you're going to go down that negative track. So it really begins with you. If you want to stop stress, think about it. You know, think really carefully right at the start. Can I do this? Have I got some strategies? What are my resources? And I'm telling you guys, everyone's got skills. Everyone's got resources. Everyone's got experience. Stress has been a part of our life for a long time. We've had to deal with it in lots of different contexts. I'm sure as hell that there are things that you've done in the past to deal with stress that would work with other situations in the future. But we have to stop ourselves, calm ourselves down, and then try and access those strategies. You know, what did I do last time? Or have I got a mate that's gone through this? Maybe I should go and talk to him about how to get through this, right? So, you know, slowing down and thinking through things carefully when you're stressed is the best response. If you react, if you just kind of leap out there and do the first thing that comes to mind, there's a pretty good chance you're going to screw things up or make things worse. And there are also some different ways of coping with stress. Now, people tend to rely on one or another kind of type of coping. Some people, and a lot of these people are guys, like to solve problems. We're good at solving problems. We're good at analysing problems, pulling them apart. Not so good at putting them back together sometimes, but we like to pull things apart, have a look at them, try and figure things out, and then we take some action, right? That's what most dudes like to do. We don't like to sit around in circles and talk about our problems and our feelings and, you know, have a good cry, get it all out of your system. I mean, that might be quite healthy, I think, sometimes. But generally speaking, guys tend to be a bit more problem focused, and women tend to be a bit more emotion focused. Like they'll sit and watch Shortland Street and eat a packet of biscuits and feel better about things. Whereas guys will be like, I need to attack this thing and fix it. What am I going to do? I'll get a dirty big sledgehammer and give it a bash and see if that works. And so we tend to take action, and we tend to think a lot and then take action. Whereas women like to feel a lot and talk a lot about stuff. We can learn from each other, actually. Like, you know, having a blend of these styles is pretty healthy. But I'm just wondering, like, do you know what your style is? Do you know what approach you normally take to dealing with stressful situations? Like, do you focus on your feelings? Do you focus on the task? Or do you just go, you know what? I want to avoid this situation altogether, and I'm not going to think about it or talk about it or do anything about it, and maybe it'll go away. Because that's sometimes what we do too when things are really stressful. All right, there are some dudes out there who have done some research on coping, and they've identified a whole bunch of ways that people cope with all sorts of things. The first one is kind of confrontative coping. So this is the kind of, I'm really stressed, so I'm going to be really angry. And I'm going to let everybody know that I'm really angry and I'm really stressed out, right? So they're just like, I'm going to go tackle the person who's stressing me out. So for those guys out there that are having trouble with their in-laws, you know, this would be having a crack at them over the Sunday dinner. Probably not a good idea, but, you know, some people use this strategy. Some people like to distance. So they'll laugh it off. They'll make a joke. They'll be like, you know, bro, my stress is so big. Like, you know, it's so big. And then I'll do a big joke or a fat joke, right? Other people like to control. So they'll try and control their stress. They won't let anybody see it. They'll stuff it down inside them. They'll try and keep a lid on it. And they'll maybe let it out a little bit at a time when they feel safe, but actually they're just going to kind of put a lid on it. Other people will be like, best way of solving stuff is going and chatting to people. Go find someone who knows what they're talking about and who might listen to me, and they might be able to support me or give me some advice or some strategies. So those people seek social support. Some people will accept responsibility for their own stress, you know, and say, look, it's my fault. It's my fault I'm stressed out. I'm the one that doesn't know how to handle things. I can't cope properly. It's my fault I can't say no to anybody. It's my fault that I keep dealing with this, you know, and they engage in a lot of blame and have a, you know, a real inner critic. There are the people who like to escape and avoid stress and problems, and they're the ones who just go to bed. And, you know, they go, tomorrow's a new day, and I'll wake up tomorrow and things will be much better. Well, the problem's still there. It hasn't changed or anything. Like, you've just got a bit more sleep, which is not a bad thing. And then there's people who will try and make a plan. You know, they might write down what their problems are. They might try and figure out which one of those things they can deal with and which one of those things they can't deal with. But they get a bit of a plan together and then they tackle it. And then there's people who are like, well, look, we all have problems. We all have stress in our lives. You know, sometimes it tests us. Sometimes we grow through it. They'll try and look for a positive spin or a positive angle on this. You know, like, you know, it makes us tougher. It makes us resilient. It makes us stronger. It reminds us of what's important in life, you know, so they'll reappraise their situation. So I want to go through some of these in terms of just a couple of styles and strategies and see, you know, some of these you might be a little bit familiar with and have a think about. So for the guys who like to deal with the problem, you know, get to the root of the problem, what kinds of strategies do they use? Well, sometimes they go for a run or go for a swim, or they'll do something physically to help them get fit or be able to maintain their physical health so that they can deal with the problem, right? So if you're feeling really stressed, what do? Go out and chop some wood, go for a run, you know, get rid of that tension, get rid of that anger, get rid of that frustration, get it out of your body. Some people just push ahead and keep working really hard. Some people will try and protect themselves. So they'll be like, okay, so I've got all this stress going on, but you know what, Chris, you can handle it. You know, some positive self-talk. I can handle this. You can do this. You know, this will pass. You'll get through it. You know, kind of self-coaching. Some people will laugh. Some people will be, you know what, I'm going to find some people at work who I really connect with and who care about me, and I'm going to spend a bit more time with them because that'll rub off on me and help me feel good about myself and help me deal with the problem. It's much easier to deal with a problem when you feel like you've got people on your team. You're not dealing with it alone. And some people will deal with the problem by relaxing. You know, you can't stay stressed 24/7. You know, you've got to take some time out. You've got to listen to some music, read a book, watch some TV. I don't know, I watch Bravo, I watch Netflix in the weekend. Any rubbish really that just gives my mind a bit of a break from what I'm having to think about, that's okay. You know, the problem will be there when you come back. And you can still deal with it, but giving yourself a break is not a bad strategy. What about non-productive coping? So these are the things that are not so good. Well, getting sick, getting so run down that you get sick, that's not a good idea. Tension reduction, so smoking, drinking, overeating, those things don't really help either because we just end up feeling sick. Wishful thinking, you know, that doesn't really solve the problem either. Blaming ourselves and blaming other people doesn't really help either. You know, we like to blame a lot of other people for our problems. Keeping stuff to ourselves, that's not a good idea either. When you keep stuff to yourself, you limit the opportunities that others might have to come and help, or they might give you a different spin or a different perspective on your problem. And if you don't let people in to help you, you might be stuck with that problem for a lot longer than you could be. So, you know, open up the possibilities for people to give you advice and support you. Worrying about the problem again, that doesn't really help either. Optimism. It's important to be positive, right? It's important to stay hopeful. Some people like to pray. You know, it gives them courage. It gives them hope. They draw strength from that. So that's, you know, that's not a bad strategy to use. Some people like to focus on the positive. Again, some people like to relax and use diversions. And then, as I talked about before, sharing, social support, getting help, rallying, going on Facebook, finding another group of dudes out there who have got the same problem. God blimey, when I'm trying to work on my car and I'm getting really stressed out, you know, I'll go onto the chat channels and I'll go on YouTube and I'll find other guys who are talking about, you know, how to fix this or how to fix that. And I'm just like sucking up all their strategies and ideas. Or we can go see a professional. Sometimes that's not a bad investment, you know, to go and see your GP, go and see a counsellor. 1 session or 2 sessions of counselling can make a big difference. Give you some skills, give you some different perspective. You know, those things can be really helpful. Sharing is something that guys find incredibly hard to do because we fear getting judged and we fear looking weak and vulnerable and like we're not handling our stuff. But in actual fact, it takes courage to ask for help, and it's a sign of strength. And the sooner you fix your problem and the sooner you get rid of the stress, the sooner you can get back to providing for your family and being a good supportive partner and dad. And that's what everybody wants. So being proactive and looking for support is a really good thing to do. All right. So I've stressed you out. We've talked about some strategies and how to deal with stress. Let's kind of break this down a little bit further. So what do you do? What do you do? Well, first of all, you've got to realize when stress is affecting you, right? So you've got to like look out for those warning signs that I talked about before. Have a bit of a check. It's kind of like a Warren of Fitness checklist. You know, am I getting enough sleep this week? You know, I get to the end of the week and I'm pretty knackered and I think, what could I have done a bit better during the week so that I'm not so tired and exhausted on a Saturday? You know, like I don't feel like doing anything because I'm absolutely knackered. So paying attention to what's going on in our body and mind, that's really important. That's the first step, is looking for issues that might be there, right? And then trying to fix them pretty quickly. Don't let it linger. I was driving into work this morning and I was watching my window wipers and the rubber on the window wiper was just about flying off. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't really been doing any maintenance on my car. And it's pretty much the same on me. I don't do a lot of maintenance on me either. So this first step is about doing some maintenance, doing a bit of a check at the end of the week or at the start of the week, you know. How am I feeling? What's going good? What do I need to do a bit of work on this week? Second thing is, if you know there's some stress in your life, you need to kind of sort the things that are stressing you out into some different categories, right? Don't lump them all together. If you lump them all together, they become a big mess and really it's really difficult to untangle them and to find something to work on. So what I suggest you do is you write down on a piece of paper all the things that are causing you stress at the moment and start sorting them into some piles, right? So the first pile is things I have a practical solution for, right? If I'm, you know, really stressed, and one of the things that's stressing me out is not enough family time, then can I do something practical about that? Can I spend a bit more time with my family? Is that something I can do? So have a little pile over here of things that I can actually fix and work on. You know, these are like little quick wins that we can get. Then there's things that you have another pile of things that might improve with time. Like right now, I'm feeling that, you know, I'm not giving my partner enough attention. You know, that work is coming before my relationships. And so, but I know that that will change and improve in time because in the next couple of weeks, things are going to rebalance a little bit between work and home. So I don't really need to tackle that one. I might talk to my partner and say, look, I know you've been missing out. We haven't had a lot of time together, but I'm going to let you know things are going to change in the next week or two. So have another pile of things that are going to change whether you work on them or not. And then the last pile is stuff that I can't do anything about. And whatever you write in that list, once you've written it in that pile and put it in that list, I suggest you screw it up and throw it in the bin. Don't even look at it. It's not worth it. There's nothing you can do about that stuff. So just let it go. there's no point worrying about it. There's no point talking about it with other people. There's no point stressing about it any more than you have to, because you can't actually do anything about it. So just bin it. Bin it and spend more time working on the things that you can do something about. And then you need this third step is like, look at your lifestyle, right? What am I doing? What can I control? Am I taking on too much work? You know, are there things I could delegate to the kids or to my wife or to a friend? You know, how can I let other people help me? You'd be amazed at how many people out there want to help their friends and family, but they don't know what to do. And so if we come up with a bit of a to-do list, A, it removes a bit of the stress in our life, but B, it also gives something for these people to do. Like, they really do want to help us. They just don't know what to do. It's a win-win situation. They get to do something to help you, and you get some of the stress taken off you. And you can return the favor to them later on, right? It's all give and take. The other thing you can do is try and prioritize. You know, what are the things, what's number one on your list of stressful things? What are some of the minor hassles and little things that, you know, can go down the bottom of the pile? And sometimes you just need to have a break. You know, I'm going to have one day where I don't think about all the stuff that's stressing me out, and that might give me a fresh perspective. But you need to kind of review your own lifestyle. What am I doing? What can I control? You know? All right, let's talk about some strategies. What can you actually do? Well, first things first, you know, you can try and control what you can control. You can try and see this thing, this stress, as a challenge, right? Reframe it. This is a challenge. I can get through this, right? Or I'm going to get through this. See it as a challenge rather than a threat. This is not a threat to my well-being. This is something that's challenging me right now, and I'm going to beat it, right? So reframe it. The second thing to do is just try and think about small steps that you can do. Break the problem down into small steps, right? What's something little that I can do that might make a difference? Well, I could go to bed an hour early. You know, it might give me a bit more energy tomorrow. I can have a team meeting or a whānau meeting tomorrow. You know, make that decision. I'm going to talk to my family about this over breakfast. You know, you'll feel better for taking a small step towards a solution. What else? Learn to say no. Learn to say no and do it guilt-free. That's the thing. When we say no to people, we often feel guilty because we can't help people. People come to us and say, can you help with this? Can you help with that? You know, Mom, Dad, I need this, I need that. It's okay to say no. They'll cope. They'll cope. And kids need to learn to cope with disappointment, right? That's part of life. You can't always get what you want. But you need to say no guilt-free. You need to be able to say, look, I really like to help you with this, or, you know, I would really like to take this on board, and it's a great project, or, you know, I understand that this is something that's a priority for you, but at the moment I've got other things that I have to deal with. People respect that. But I think what happens is people don't want to say no because they don't feel they have an excuse. They don't have a reason to say no. And so what I'm trying to do is give you some reasons to say no. You can say, actually, you know what, I've got a lot on at the moment. Or, you know, maybe I'll be able to help you, but not for a couple of weeks because I've got this, this, and this on. So just layer on some reasons, you know, and then you'll feel a lot less guilty about saying no. The other thing is kind of limit your expectations, right? Like, we tend to expect too much of ourselves and we expect too much of the people around us. Just drop the expectations a little bit. You know, having a to-do list is a really good idea, you know, like having a bit of a list of things I got to do at work tomorrow or do with the family tomorrow. But you know what? That list will stress you out because there'll be too many things on it and you won't have enough time to do all those things, and you'll feel bad about not achieving number 4 and 5 and 6. So maybe just put 2 things on your to-do list, you know, drop your expectations a little bit. Be kind to yourself. You know, you're struggling and you're dealing with a lot of stressful stuff, have a bit of compassion towards yourself. We're really good at having compassion to other people who are struggling, but then when we're struggling, we're really rubbish at being compassionate towards ourselves. So stop beating yourself up. Get organised. So I get up a little bit earlier in the morning and I make sure that I get my lunch sorted and I do some stuff that's going to help me get off and get on the road quicker. You know, it's amazing what you can do when you put a little bit of extra time aside and do a bit of planning. You know, can I combine this and this? Or, you know, maybe I can eat my lunch and go for a walk and get some fresh air at the same time. And, you know, so getting organised and having a bit of a plan is a good strategy. Here are 3 other things that you can do to reduce stress. Refuel. We all understand this. When the car's fuel light is blinking, we need to refuel it, right? We need to fill up. Well, when do we stop and check our own fuel? When do we stop and go, you know what, I need to fill up? What am I going to do that's going to fill me up? I'll talk about this in a minute because that's your self-care, right? Going to the gym for an hour might feel like that's really selfish because I should be doing family time or something else. But actually what you're doing is you're refilling and you're refueling. And that's really important if you need to keep going for your family. So check your fuel levels and refill. Resolve. So that's another thing, figuring out what the stresses are and, you know, working on those, as I said right at the beginning. And the third one is relax. Learn to switch off. Turn this off. Turn off your emails. Tell people that you're not available. Go and read the bloody paper on the deck on a Sunday morning for an hour and you will feel 100 times better. This is not being selfish. This is about switching and de-stressing your body and your brain. You can't keep being in that red zone forever. You've got to shift back to that green zone. So the only way to get to that green zone is go fishing. You know, go fishing, have something nice to eat, lie on the couch and watch motorsport for an hour. You know, it's not a bad idea to get some relaxation. What about the emotions? What if you do find that you're struggling with your emotions and, you know, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling stressed, you're feeling angry and frustrated? What could you do to kind of regulate that? Well, breathing really helps. Deep breathing. Breathing in, holding it for 3 seconds, and then releasing for 3 seconds. This deep breathing works on our parasympathetic nervous system. It actually helps reset the mind. So this is, you know, any kind of meditation or deep breathing is going to be really helpful for resetting ourselves. Start thinking about your choices. You know, what are my options? You know, when we get really overwhelmed by our feelings, sometimes we forget that we have choices. Like, I can choose to feel angry, or I can choose to feel something else. Sometimes I use a little bit of mindfulness and a little bit of acceptance therapy, which is like, when I'm really angry or upset or feeling really down, I notice what I'm feeling and I'm like, it's all right, you know, it's okay to feel a bit down or it's okay to feel a bit anxious, but you don't have to act on those feelings. Once you recognize what they are, this is me feeling upset or me feeling angry, you don't actually have to act on those. You can just acknowledge it and let it go. It's just a feeling. It's like a cloud in the sky. You can watch it and you can watch it roll by. Doesn't mean you have to do anything about it. You just kind of acknowledge it and go, I'm having a bit of a bad morning. You know, that's all right. Keep going. You don't have to ruminate. You don't have to dwell on it. You don't have to analyze it. Just acknowledge it and let it go. It's like a rugby ball. catch it, pass it, right? Don't have to bloody hang on to it. Or do your Tai Chi, you know? It's like, you know, get it and then move it. It's not something that you have to clutch onto and then spend all day bloody dealing with it. Like, sometimes feelings need to be held lightly and then let go. Talking about it, writing about it, singing about it, you know, get it out of your system. That's not a bad way to regulate emotions as well. I watch people in cars when I'm sitting in traffic, and some people have got some mad skills, rapping skills. You can see people raging in their cars. You can see people smiling and singing along. All of this stuff helps, you know, helps us regulate our emotions. What else can we do? Well, this is not so much stress management now. This is more things we can do to protect ourselves from stress. You can eat healthy, right? That's really good. Look at your diet. There's a big connection between food and mood. If we're eating rubbish, we're going to feel rubbish, right? Smoking and drinking, taking drugs, smoking cannabis, all of this amplifies any negative feelings that you're having. You might feel, oh yeah, it's going to relax me at the end of the week. But in actual fact, if you're depressed or anxious, it's going to amplify those feelings. Exercise is really good. Get moving, get out there. Even if it's a little bit of exercise, could be mowing the lawns, just going for a walk around the block, going for a bike ride with the kids. Combine two things, exercise and time with family. Win-win. Time out, like I said before, having a little mini break. I have mini breaks in my office. I sit there and I turn my computer off for 10 minutes. I stare out the window. And you might think, well, that's him being a lazy bugger and not doing his job. But I'm like, I actually need 10 minutes away from reading and writing and dealing with other people's stuff. And I usually feel a lot more clearer when I come back. So build in mini breaks. Be mindful. We talked a bit about that. You don't have to act on your feelings. So just acknowledge the feelings and let them go. Sleep. Sleep is incredibly important. We make really bad decisions when we're sleep deprived. We get angry with people and we can't control our mood when we're sleep deprived. Take a look at your bedroom. My partner did a Marie Kondo on our bedroom and decluttered it and then put some scented candles in there. I'm like, what is this? But I tell you what, when you walk into the bedroom and it smells really nice and you've got fresh sheets on the bed and you slip into the bed and it's nice and cool and peaceful, it makes a world of difference, you know, than if you're in the bloody bed and you're tossing and turning and you're worrying about shit and your phone's beside your bed. Leave all that stuff out. Make your bedroom your sanctuary, or create a hammock in a tree out the back that you can escape to away from the kids. Have a power nap in your car if you have to, right? But get some extra sleep. You'll see that it makes a huge difference. And again, cut yourself some slack, right? We tend to beat ourselves up. We tend to be our own worst enemy when it comes to stress. We tend to think that we should be able to deal with all sorts of things all the time. We can't be on our A game all the time. It's impossible. All right, what about anxiety? What if you're really anxious about what might happen? And, you know, maybe even a child in your family who's got cancer and it could come back. What am I going to do? How am I going to cope with this, right? Because this can be really, really stressful for people, particularly people with chronic illness as well. And how do I help my own family members deal with their anxiety? Not just me, but, you know, how do I deal with my other family members? Well, again, all of those things that we talked about, the breathing, talking it out with friends, getting exercise, getting good sleep, avoiding caffeine, these all work for anxiety as well as stress, right? The other thing is, when we try and avoid things that we're anxious about, they grow, right? When we avoid situations and we avoid conversations that we don't want to have, or we avoid thoughts, like you have these thoughts that something might happen, and these thoughts are what we call unprocessed thoughts. So they go into like a little box up in here in your memory, and they go up here and they're just in this little box and they're like beeping all the time and they're reminding you that they're there, and they're like, you should be anxious about this, you should be anxious about that, you should be anxious about that. And the more you ignore them, the louder they get, right? Until your anxieties become fears. And then you get really stressed out. So what I'm suggesting here is that one thing you can do with your anxiety is, you know, open that box up a little bit, just a little bit. Don't have to open it up all the way, just open it up a little bit and just take that thing out and have a look at it for a little bit, 5 minutes. I'm going to spend 5 minutes thinking about this thing that I'm anxious about, and I'm going to put it back in the box, right? Because you can control that. I'm going to like bring it out, have a look at it, have a talk to someone about it, and I'm going to put it back in that box, right? And you can keep doing this. Try approaching the situation or the thing that's creating you anxiety just a little bit. You don't have to get in the cage with the lion. You can look at it from outside the cage, right? A little bit of exposure can help. It just takes away some of the fear and takes away some of the power that thing has over us. The other thing to do is keep track of when you feel anxious and be proactive. So if you know that you get really anxious in the morning, then take extra care of yourself in the morning. You know, like start looking at the patterns around your mental health and well-being and start being a bit more proactive about it. The other thing you can do is you can shrink stuff. I do this all the time in the washing machine, and then I put it in the dryer and I end up with my favorite t-shirt. I can't wear it anymore unless I lose some weight. But you can shrink your worries too. Like sometimes talking things out with other people helps us shrink things that are really big down to a manageable size. I find writing things helps, you know, like writing out how I'm feeling or what I'm going to deal with, how I'm going to deal with it, and I have a bit of a plan together. Time manage. So again, you know, I'm going to give myself 15 minutes to worry about this stuff, and then I'm going to move on to something else. You feel good because you feel like you've done something proactive, you've dealt with it a little bit, but you don't let it ruin your whole day. You don't let it control everything. You can start trying to find a bit more balance in your life, I guess. You know, it's not, we're not worried all the time. Like we're not anxious all the time. We're not depressed all the time. We're not stressed all the time. If the only thing that you focus on is stress, that's all you'll ever see. That's all you'll ever feel and experience. We have to look at the little moments of joy that we have in our life as well, you know? There are times when we go to work or we're doing stuff with our family that aren't stressful. Remember those things. Try and keep stuff in perspective. All right, self-care. Now, this is the one that guys find pretty hard, right? So don't call it self-care, call it maintenance, call it manscaping. I don't know, call it something that applies to you, you know? I try and have a shave once a week, you know, to make myself look presentable. I'll do things that I have to do because I have to maintain my appearance and my well-being. But a little bit of self-care, a little bit of maintenance, a little bit of prep work can go a long way, right? So think of this as an investment. Think about this as putting money in the bank. I'm going to put some things in the bank that are going to help me when I get really stressed, right? If I put some things away now for a rainy day, when that rainy day happens and I get really stressed out, I'll have lots of things in that little bank that I can pull out that'll help me get through the situation, right? So, you know, aim to do little things, you know, even a little bit of exercise a day, you know, just walking a little bit can help. You don't have to go to the gym for 60 minutes to feel good about yourself. Have a self-care first aid kit. in my drawer, there's chips and chocolate and a little bit of cash in case I need to go and buy something yummy for lunch. That's my kind of self-care kit. It might be that you like to treat yourself and buy your favorite coffee, you know. It could be giving yourself a chance to go and have a swim, you know, by yourself. or just listening to your favorite music in the car. I love that. I don't have to share my car with anybody, so I never have to fight for the music. But it might be about just doing something for you. Another thing you can do is kind of start your day with a bit of me time. And that's not a bad thing. Like if you jump in the shower first thing in the morning, think of that as an investment in some me time, right? You might have 5 minutes in the shower, 3 if you're in Auckland and there's water restrictions, I don't know. But, you know, think of that as that's a bit of investment in me, you know, having a shave, feeling good about myself, putting on some deodorant, looking good when I leave home. These things are all good. You know, think of them as little bits of investment. The other thing is lean on your support network. Now, I have an A, B, and a C team. There are people in my A team who are my go-to people for when I'm really stressed or I'm struggling. And then there's people in my B team who I might go and have a beer with, I might go to the movies with, or go to a game with. And, you know, they're not counselors, they're not therapists, they're not great at listening, but they'll distract you for a little while and they're okay. And then you got people in your C team who are like, hey, Chris, at work, and they might stop and have a chat for 5 minutes, but you're not going to deeply share your issues and concerns with them, but they, you know, they contribute to your well-being. So think about your A, B, and C team and think about who can I lean on for some support sometimes, and then make the offer to them. You know, if you need some support, I'll be there for you to lean on, right? That's how we get by in this stuff. Right, nearly done. Te whare tapa whā. Hopefully you guys have heard of this. The 4 walls plus the whenua, which is our foundation. These things are really helpful for our well-being, right? There's our mental and emotional well-being, there's our spiritual well-being, there's our physical well-being, and there's family and social well-being. And all of these things need to be in balance, right? If you don't have balance in these things, you're going to have trouble. So if you put all your investment in psychology and counseling and feeling good and thinking good, but you don't look after your physical well-being, you're going to get in trouble. You might go to the gym and go swimming and running, you know, once a day, and that'd be really good for you physically. But if you're not spending any time with your whānau, then, you know, you're going to have problems socially. So it's really good to kind of look at these different dimensions in our well-being and go, is there some areas that I need to do a little bit of work on? Do I need to get a bit more balance in my life? That'll help. Problem solving. When we try and fix problems quickly, we often choose the wrong tools, right? And we often just make really reactive and impulsive decisions. And so my advice to you is when you're really stressed out, slow your roll. Just slow down, take some time out to think things through, right? Do that appraisal, try and figure out what's the problem, and then choose the right strategy. When we react, when somebody says something or does something that stresses us out and we react to it, we often end up regretting it. So try and respond, you know, try and think before you respond rather than react, right? Just take some time to think things through. If you're really stressed, you don't have to deal with things straight away. You can say, look, let's look at this tomorrow. Let's talk about it tonight, but I'm not going to make any decisions, and let's work it out tomorrow as a family, right? It's not going to hurt to slow things down a little bit. We talked a bit about this, seeing problems as challenges rather than seeing them as threats. So I'll leave that there. The problem solving, what do you call it? Process. Figure out what the problem is, come up with some strategies, have a yak to your mates, see which ones they think will work, evaluate, pick one, pick one. Most people stop when they just generate a whole bunch of solutions and then they don't do anything. But pick one and then try it out and then stop and go, is this working, right? Is me going for a run making me feel better? Is me spending some more time with my family making me feel better? Is me hanging out with my in-laws making me feel better? Like, check this stuff out, evaluate it. If it's not working, go back and do something else, right? Go back and try one of the other strategies you came up with. But do something. And just, I think about what you already have. What are my strengths? What are my skills? What am I good at doing? And then think about the people around you as well. What can they bring in? How can you bring people into your network who can support you? No one's saying that letting people in means that you're crap at managing your stress. There are things that we can do, and then there's things that other people can do to help us, right? So in here in this diagram, you can see I can use my self-control. I can use my thinking skills. I can have some confidence in my ability to deal with stuff. I can have a positive outlook. I can take responsibility and participate in my own well-being, right? These are all things that I can do. But then there's like positive role models. Like I was watching John Kerwin the other day and I was like, he's a great role model. And then I was thinking about who's in my community that supports men, you know, that are struggling. Who could I tap into or get some advice from? And then caring relationships. Who gives a shit? Like, who cares about us? Remember those people. They're in our lives for a reason. Let them in. Let them help us, right? What's the point of having caring people in your life if you don't let them care for you? So widen your support network. You know, let people in who can help. Go and have a chat to your GP. Find some Kiwi dads online Facebook groups. Have a chat to other dads that are out there that are dealing with this stuff. And guarantee that they've had the same problems that you've got, the same stresses that you've got, and they've tried all the bad solutions first. Find out what those are and don't do them, right? Talk to your whānau. Talk to your neighbours. Go to church. Talk to your pastor. Talk to people who have got experience dealing with stress and challenges in people's lives. Let those people into your bloody network. Self-talk's really important. Mike King goes on about this, you know, our inner critic, right? When we have that negative self-talk, I can't do this. This is too much. I hate this. I don't know what to do. You know, I never get what I want. Life sucks. How do you feel when you talk to yourself like that? We feel worse. And how do we feel when we talk positively to ourselves? It's all right, Chris. You can deal with this. You've done this before. It's all right. One step at a time. Let's break this down. What's a good first thing to do? You feel more confident. You feel more in control. You feel better, right? So keep that self-talk going. And I love Bear Grylls. I think this guy is amazing. Guys, we're great at adapting. Like, you know, if we don't have the right tool to fix the car or to fix the house, we'll make a bloody tool. We'll jam two things together with a bit of tape and try and make it work, right? We're good at adapting. You know, we improvise, we adapt, and we overcome. This is stuff that guys are great at doing, right? So use this in your own bloody life, for God's sakes. Just, you know, be Bear Grylls. If I'm trying to achieve something and it's not bloody working and it's stressing me out, then go the hell around it. You know, like, don't give up. Have a bit of grit and just go around it, you know? So I can't achieve what I want to achieve this way. You can see there on the picture, the little red thing. Then go around the bloody thing. Find another way. You don't just stand there in the forest and go, I don't know which way to go and I can't go around this bloody cliff, so I'll just stand here and die. You find another way around, right? And frustration, not having a straight path and a clear run at things, that's life. Life is like that. You know, it's going to throw all sorts of things at us, right? But it's how we handle those challenges, you know? It's how we dig ourselves out of the beach when we get the four-wheel drive stuck, you know? It's finding a path, finding the hotel that we can't find because our GPS is naffed and we won't ask for instructions. It's finding the way to where we want to go, you know, and our goals for our family, our goals for ourselves, our goals for our children. You know, if these are being blocked by things that have happened, if these are being blocked by illness or stress, find a way around, you know. Guys have courage and they have strength and they have determination. I know that there are men out there that have these things. Dig deep, you know, don't give up. Let people help you and go around, right? Well, we haven't got anybody online at the moment, I don't think so. I can't ask you guys what you've found that helps reduce stress, but hopefully there's some things that you've kind of connected with in this kōrero about, you know, yeah, I've tried that. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't work. I don't know. But, you know, have a think about some of the things that we've talked about. We've got something.
We've got a couple of people online.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, definitely feel free to ask questions or.
Can I show you just a couple of websites and then we'll do the Q&A, right? So then you guys can fire away. Mental Health Foundation, go and check them out. Great ideas on stress reduction and anxiety reduction, looking after your wellbeing. Health Navigator, it's got some really good websites and apps on it. Check out depression.org with John JK. The Journal is really good for guys out there who like to keep things a bit more private and want to kind of explore how they're thinking and feeling on an online journal. Really good. Mentemia, which is JK's new app, fantastic. I've given it a try. There's really good things on here that can help us deal with stress and break things down and remind us of our strategies. It's personalizable, so you can have your own little plan in there, and it gives you great feedback on how you're doing, because us guys like to monitor our progress on stuff. It's a bit of a competition sometimes. So go and check these out. And then there's some apps here at the end around kind of dealing with stuff, mental stuff as well, like Stop, Breathe, Think, mindfulness apps. There's a Parenting to Go app there as well. I love that app for anyone out there who's got some parenting issues and wants some parenting strategies and skills. These, like, you've got it on your phone. So when the kids are fighting in the supermarket, you can like go through and you can look up, how do I deal with it? All right, Q&A. Hopefully you guys found that interesting. I can't see the Q&A.
Yeah, I can. It's down at the toolbox. If you do have any questions, just chuck them up and I'll read them out to you, Chris, if they come up.
All right, cool. Oh, there was some questions that someone sent in, eh? Will I go? Do you want me to go through those now?
Yes, please, if you could. That would be
all right, cool. Okay, now some of these are a little bit tricky and a little bit specific, but I'm going to have a crack, right? And maybe some of the stuff that I've talked about already might have helped these guys out. One person said, I'm having some trouble with my in-laws, and they're coming and staying with the family and trying to help us out and be supportive, but they're kind of driving them crazy at the same time. And so how do I, and they require quite a lot of attention by the sound of it. So how do we figure out what to do with people who want to help us but end up creating more stress for us? And I kind of thought about this and I was like, you almost need to get helpers for the helpers. It's like, you know, can you give them a job to do that's so easy that they don't need any help from you to do it? I'm not sure if I'm interpreting this right, but, you know, if they're struggling to provide help for you that's meaningful and effective, try and give them something really easy that doesn't require your supervision or support. So, you know, like set them up and then let them do what they got to do, you know, or try and find, they're just trying to be helpful and useful. That's what I'm kind of hearing from this, but they're stressing you out. Yeah, that's a tricky one, because they're also the in-laws. So, you know, you got to be nice to them, right? Yeah, my advice would be try and give them a task or something to do that doesn't require you to supervise them or run them around or create more stress. You know, find an easy task. Or create a list of things that you need done and then get them to choose one of those things to do, but make sure you say to them, choose something that you can do by yourself without assistance. All right, second one was, how do I get over the fear of my child getting cancer again? So obviously they're in remission or in recovery. And how do you deal with that fear? Well, I think those strategies of dealing with the fear and anxiety that we talked about before would be really helpful. I mean, talking about your fears and actually sharing them shrinks them. So, you know, make them more manageable, write them down, talk to a counselor, talk to a support worker about those fears. These are real fears, like they're not, this is not, you know, this is not out of the norm for someone who's in your situation. But the way to make fear less controlling and less dominant in your life is to take its power away from it. And that way is just to talk about it, try and find some solutions to it. And, you know, as I said before, you have to acknowledge that there are some things that are beyond our control. All we can do is prepare the best that we can, right? So you can look after your child, you can try and look after their well-being, you can try and help keep them healthy. Ultimately, if they get cancer again, then you'll know how to deal with that because you've already been through it before, right? But at the same time, like, you can only, for a certain extent, live in the moment. You know, live with what you're dealing with right now. If you try and live too far in the future, if you try and think about all the things that might happen in the future, it's going to be really difficult for you. You're going to be really anxious about what may or may not happen. So try and stay in the present a little bit and try and talk through those fears with other people. There was another part to this that was about trying to get some balance between the stress within and having a normal life for family. I actually think that sometimes guys need a bit of alone time, and that's okay, but sometimes doing things with our family can actually reduce our stress. Like, you'd be surprised, like going for an impromptu picnic, going and doing the shopping together. Sometimes that's pretty stressful, so maybe don't do that. But doing things with your kids can remind you of the gifts that they are and take away some of that stress. Yeah, they're stressful. Kids are stressful, but you know, they're also a joy to have. The loss of relationship with your partner. So this person's saying about how when you're dealing with the stress and your focus is on that, sometimes we lose sight of our partners and our partners' needs. How do we reconnect? How do we keep our relationships going? And I think this is really important. Like, stress does affect our sexual behavior and motivation, but it also, I think when you're dealing with, like, you know, I'll be really blunt here. When you're dealing with the possibility of death and the stress that that causes, that can have a really big impact on intimacy and attachment. Like, people start to back off a bit from each other because they fear losing the people that they love. And that might not just be the person with cancer, that might be other people in their life as well. And guys are pretty good at doing this, like backing off and withdrawing to protect themselves, but also to protect the people around them. They don't want everybody else to see their stress or to see their sadness or to see how much they're worried. But I'm telling you now, if you don't share those things with your family, you're going to cut them off and they're going to notice this. You know, the only way to get through the stuff is to get through it together rather than individually. So try and connect with your partner. Do one of those mini breaks. Have a date night. You know, do something special for them. You know, it can be things that are really small that just build that connection again. It could be leaving them a little note on the kitchen table in the morning before you go off to work that says, you know, I love you, babe. I really appreciate everything you do. Or it could be a unsolicited text that you send during the day to tell that person how much you care about them. You know, reconnect. If you've got if you've got real concerns about your relationship, if you think it's on the rocks because of the stress and everything else that's happening, I do encourage you to talk to a relationship-based counsellor, because again, your relationships are the most important things in the world. And, you know, it's worth the investment of going and talking to somebody who understands what you're going through and can help you, give you some tools and strategies for fixing that. I think that's it. The last one was about anxiety, and I think we've kind of touched on that already. Was there anything else out there?
Yeah, I've got a question. What's the difference between depression and anxiety? Are the coping strategies similar?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, they're both mood disorders. Like depression and anxiety are both mood disorders, so they affect our mood, but they also affect our behavior, and they also affect our thinking, so they're kind of common in that sense. But they are very different disorders. Sometimes they coexist. Sometimes people with depression also have anxiety, so you can get comorbid disorders that go together. Are the strategies the same? Oh, what was the question? Did they want to know what was the difference between them?
Yeah, the difference between them, and are the coping strategies similar?
Oh, okay, yeah. So depression per se is made up of different things. So generally you get low mood, right? So you feel down, and it persists for probably 6 weeks or more to reach clinical depression or major depression. Like, we all experience low mood. We all have times when we feel sad or feel down, and that's just being sad. That's just feeling down. That's not depression. Depression is when that low mood persists for about 6 weeks, and where it starts to affect us, like physically, stops us from going out. We withdraw from activities that we find that, you know, we don't want to eat anymore. We don't enjoy any of the normal things that we love doing. We just, you know, like have no energy. There's a whole bunch of symptoms that come with depression. With anxiety, it's a little bit different. Anxiety, we tend to be have periods of over-arousal. So we tend to think a lot and feel a lot, and are scared and future focused, like we're worrying about things that might not happen. And again, like, people can have anxiety without having an anxiety disorder, but it's when that anxiety disorder, it's when that anxiety stops us from doing the things that we normally do, and it's unrealistic fear. You know, like, if I don't feel like going to work because I think that something bad might happen at work, how realistic is that? You know, like, if the chances of that not happening is pretty low, well then, you know, it's an unrealistic fear. It's an unrealistic anxiety or worry. Like, we can have normal worries and we have the right to be worried, but it's when we worry about things that may not happen and shouldn't happen and won't really happen that we can have problems. Do the strategies work for both? Yes, there are a lot of strategies for managing both that work equally well, like the diet and the sleep and the exercise. Exercise is really good for endorphins. And so for people who are depressed, those endorphins can help reset the brain in terms of, well, when we have depression in our brain, it prevents the uptake of serotonin, which is the normal things that make the normal chemical that makes us happy. So when we go for a walk, we feel good. When we have a bit of a laugh or see people, we feel good. Depression stops those chemicals from working. So sometimes, you know, if you do have real concerns about this, if you think that you might have major depression or major anxiety, go and see your GP, because they'll be able to figure out whether or not you meet meet the criteria for it. But sometimes medication can be really helpful. Medication and a bit of counselling and some of those strategies that I've talked about. So sometimes we need to reset our brain chemically with medication for us to be able to listen and take on board counselling strategies, and to get that balance again, so that we feel like getting out there and doing the other things that we know help our well-being. So my advice is, if this persists and if it's really affecting different parts of your life, don't muck around with it. Go and see your GP and be really blunt with them. Don't just say, oh, you know, doc, I'm feeling a bit down. Tell them exactly how you feel and what's going on. Be really brutally honest with them and say, this is what's going on for me.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. This all has been really good. And
I'm glad.
Yeah, awesome feedback. Thank you, James. If you've got another question, drop it in. Otherwise, this has been such an awesome, informative, practical session with you, Dr. Chris Belden. We're really privileged to be able to have you speak to our dads at CCF, and even our mums. That, you know, this is relevant for everyone to take on board, whether we've got major challenges or little challenges. All of this has been superb and on point. For myself, I love the slow your roll. Definitely relevant for mums, dads, and whatever situation we're going through. So fantastic, fantastic. It's been so cool having you here. One more sentence from you, words of wisdom, if you want to add.
You put me on the spot. I don't know. I think
we're going to be watching. I think this is awesome though, because we'll be putting it on our website for us to rewatch. And I think it's such a fantastic resource for us to have, because we will definitely keep it and take on a lot of really awesome things that you can't sum up, because you've said it all in your whole entire slide.
There's a lot of things. I think for me, I'm learning to be more honest. And I think for the guys that are out there listening to this or watching this later, try a bit more honesty. You know, take a look inside. Be honest about how our health is. Be honest with our friends and family. Be honest with our health professionals. Be honest with support workers. The only way we can get through stuff is if we're a little bit more honest with ourselves. You know, don't leave stuff till the last minute. There are too many guys out there who are really struggling, who, you know, we got to use that courage. We've got to use that stuff that we've got inside and just, you know, be honest with ourselves and be honest with other people. And I think if there was a bit more honesty in the world, things would be a lot better. And I just wanted to show the guys out there that there are lots and lots and lots of groups out there who are providing support to men. Because I often think, as a man, we think there's nothing out there for us. You know, there's lots of stuff out there for families and mums. Where's the stuff for the guys? And it is out there. You need to look hard for it, but it's out there. There are guys out there who are helping other men, and there's some really great women out there too who are really good at helping men, and they all want to support our tāne and our men to live healthier and happier lives. So just reach out, you know, help a brother and help yourself.
Awesome, ka pai. Thank you so much for tonight. It's been awesome.
You're welcome.
Nice way to end off.